Hello and welcome to Justin Dwyer Artistry. Today's video is a time lapse of a landscape painting. I will show you how to paint this landscape and we'll share some information and tips along the way. So let's get cracking. To start the painting off, I'm marking out some main areas of colour. I'm not trying to be precise to begin with, I'm just interested in filling the canvas in with colour. I paint the top with blue for the sky, the middle green for some mountains, and the bottom of the canvas is a warm yellow for a field. Next I will start to add some blues into the green of the mountains to add details. I'm using a reference photo for the painting, but I will use this only as a general guide and won't try to copy it exactly. I want to add enough details to make my mountains look like mountains. I don't want to agonise over exactly where every line or shadow goes. This painting is more about expressing art as an emotional response to the subject. The sky is the coolest colour in the painting and will push back the furthest. Next is the green mountains with the blue shadows. These will appear closer, but will still be distant. The next layer will be pale yellow hills in front of the green mountains. The yellow will bring the hills closer than the mountains. In front of the yellow hills is a row of green trees. The trees will have stronger contrast than the pale yellow hills and will be closer again. Finally, at the very bottom of the painting is a field of yellow wheat with a winding road. The yellows are more saturated in this field and will be the warmest and closest part of the whole painting. The scene I am painting today is in the South Island of New Zealand. I have visited New Zealand a couple of times in the last decade and have always enjoyed walking through the beautiful countryside, scenery and national parks. Walking from Arrowtown over towards Queenstown, there is a rich diversity of nature to encounter, from farmlands to nature reserves, through a golf course and ending at a beautiful lake. This area was the site of a gold rush in the 1800s and a lot of rich history remains to explore along with the amazing landscape and ever-changing climate. It was a beautiful summer's day and a perfect morning for walking. A gentle breeze, a light backpack with just some water and some snacks. The day could not have been any better. On this trip I was accompanied by two of my nieces. They weren't even complaining very much. One of them stopped and took a photo as we went. It is a glorious memento of that wonderful day and I am truly grateful to be able to capture something of it in my painting. The blue I've added to the mountains has helped to push them back and also give them definition and interest. I've added some green shadows to the hills in front, which is giving them a stronger contrast and bringing them forward in the painting. Now I'm adding in a dark line of trees in front of the hills, which is going to act both as a border to the golden field at the very bottom of the painting and also will add another layer of depth. I'll add some dark shadows underneath the trees to show the morning light. Capturing the light in a painting is always a great step in achieving a level of realism without necessarily having to copy every little detail. I've always loved walking. It's a great sensation to go outside and leave your troubles behind you. Just pick a direction and stride out into nature and see what awaits. There is a peace that comes to me when I'm walking in nature that I've never found a replacement for. There is an excitement in topping a crest and seeing a vista open up before me. There is wonder in turning a corner and discovering some magical spot or a beautiful scene. I've stopped to feel the textures on plants and rocks, quenched my thirst in mountain streams, swum in crater lakes, showered under waterfalls, eaten berries, smelled the flowers. Nature calls to me, and some of the happiest memories that I have are from being immersed in it. I'm using a fan brush to mark out a whole range of different yellows in the wheat field. I'm using cadmium yellow as the brightest, all the way down to a yellow ochre, thinned down with a lot of titanium white. All the different yellows will build up texture in the field. Later, we'll use a smaller brush to increase the amount of texture to give the field a warm rippling effect. I will put the most amount of detail into the field at the front of the painting, which will bring it forward and make it the closest thing to the viewer. I clean the fan brush and start to mark in some highlights onto the mountains in the background and to the hills. We're tidying things up, just giving it a little bit more definition but not agonising over the details. We can always add more refinement later, but for now the important thing is just to build up each layer and to start to get a sense of what the finished picture will look like. I had a few slices of mouldy bread in my backpack. After the outward journey we sat under the trees on the shores of the lake and fed it to some ducks. We sat and enjoyed the cool shade and the nice breeze. A snack on some fruit and a drink of water were welcome, followed by some running repairs to the blisters. Spending time in places like that gives me time to reflect and consider many things. The general noise of my mind quiets down and I can focus in on something important. When I'm in nature, I will explore my surroundings with as many senses as possible and try to understand what does it mean to me. I might look at a tree and ask myself, what is a tree? A tree is a seed that has devoted itself to reaching its potential. It strives constantly and never falters in its goal of reaching for the sun. The tree does not understand giving up, criticism, hatred, jealousy or other negative expressions of life. The tree only knows how to grow. I'm not a tree, but I can try to be more like one, in my art and in my life. I can put aside the constant chatter in my mind that tells me bad things about myself. I can focus on growing instead. I can apply this to my art. I can apply this to every part of my life. I've gotten out the purple paint and have applied it liberally in all of the shadow areas, wherever I want the deepest contrast to be. The yellow and the purple will complement each other and will bring each other up, and this will give me some very strong shadows and some very strong sunlight in the foreground and the midground. Taking a very small brush now, I start to add in smaller details all over the painting. We're making just little marks, not agonising over every little line, but indicating and hinting and suggesting at what will be there. The basics of the painting are already in. At this point now it's just a question of balancing. Everything that I touch and change will change another aspect of the painting. I add some more yellow to the hills in the midground to bring them forward. Perhaps it'll bring them too far forward and I'll need to knock them back again. I add too much green to the mountains behind and they'll come too far forwards. It's a constant fight to balance while adding small details and points of interest in the painting. Adding some highlights in the row of trees at the front brings them forward and makes them appear more three-dimensional. But I'm not trying to exactly replicate each tree. I'm simply suggesting and hinting, giving the impression of some trees. After a period of calm and reflection, we began the journey home. The sun was hotter and higher in the sky now. The return had some long uphill stretches. They were not steep, but they continued on for some time. Our energy levels were not as high as on the outward journey, but the calm and serenity that had been imparted was still strong, and the reflections and contemplations continued. Tiny things can capture my imagination as I walk. The buzzing of an insect, the shadow of a bird, the unique shape of a single twig. All of nature can be beautiful and amazing. On the way home we passed a small mountain. We had a choice, to pass around or to climb the heights and survey all we had seen from above. Of course I climbed. There was no other possible choice. The way was steep and my already tired legs protested, soon followed by lungs panting for air, but I did not stop. At the top of the mountain I stood and surveyed a view in all directions. I could trace the journey in the surrounding countryside and pick out other landmarks that we had already encountered. It was a spectacular view, and it was made all the more special by having had to work hard to get it. We've reached the long, slow, drawn-out process of building up the stalks of wheat in the field at the front of the drawing. I take a small brush and build up many small strokes next to each other, not perfectly straight. Each one will be slightly angled or slightly different. I keep changing the colours that I'm using and building up lots and lots of layers of tiny little marks. This seems like overkill perhaps, but it's the best way to build up a rich texture in the field. There will be so many little stalks and heads they will feel like they're moving when you look at the picture. I add white to some sections to desaturate the yellow. This will push those stalks back and further away. I add more yellow to some sections which will bring them forward. A more saturated colour will make them stand out and jump forward. In keeping the balance of the painting as a whole, I noticed that my sky is too dark now. It doesn't look like a hot summer sky. I want to push it further back and make it more faded. I add more white to the original colour and then more white again. I keep pushing it back until the sky looks like a hot summer's day. After resting for a while and emptying my remaining water, I began the descent down the other side of the mountain. The path was ill-defined, and in places my weary legs threatened to fail and let me fall. The most treacherous parts I actually sat down on each ledge and lowered myself section by section. There was no elegance in my descent, but I made it in one piece. With the afternoon wearing on, I regained level ground and journeyed back into the village. There were shops and some market stalls, and I paused to buy a bag of cherries that looked delicious. The remainder of the journey was slow and punctuated by the alternating sweet and tangy flavour of the cherries as my sore and tired feet carried me the last kilometre home. It had been a great day out, and although weary, I was at peace with the world. A contented smile rested on my cherry-stained face. The sky is still too dark, so I'm adding more white, even more white. This is almost pure white that I'm adding and blending in now. Of course I'm using oil paint here, so the colours are still wet. I painted all of this painting in one session. Alla prima, wet in wet, so the oil paint will still blend. There's only last minute details to put into this painting. Just little touches here and there. I step back, I look away, I look back and I see what jumps out at me. I adjust something and then look away again. My memories of that day have no doubt blended into other days, and just like in my painting, the exact details don't matter. The idea of the day is what matters to me, and I've tried to represent that in my painting. I always try to convey something of myself in my work. I try to share some of that in the video so that you can see the journey. We will all tread a different path, and we will all take something unique away from each experience that we have, and that is what makes each story worth telling. No one else will ever see the world in the exact same way as I see it. My artistic journey isn't about getting better at painting and drawing as realistically as possible. It's about getting better at showing you what I see in my inner vision. What is your journey? I would love to know what you think, so please leave me a comment below and tell me what's important to you. And that's it. The painting is done. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your company today. If you'd like to leave me a comment, please do so. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.